Welcome. I'm Robert A. Wilson. The Walk of Wisdom webinar opens your heart and soul, feeling your savvy, omnipotent, utopian lure within your core to core. Welcome to the Walk of Wisdom webinar presented by Robert A. Wilson. Cowboy Wisdom shows you the way to expand through life, unleashed your expressed expansionisms of your internal spiritual magical splendor, releasing your fears to experience your desired life. And the reason I use the ED words, I want the subconscious and your inner self to already feel like it's accomplished. The Walk of Wisdom webinars are copyrighted and trademarked by Robert A. Wilson, Cowboy Wisdom, and Walk of Wisdom webinars and seminars. Life expands as you understand fear is embedded from the beginning of time to present and is a memory and images in your mind. And it's really the image of what you should or could or would have done if you'd have stood up and done what you really thought and you expected yourself to do. Fear comes from lack of expectations rather than appreciating the outcome in the exchange at the same time. How is war, pillage, plunder, and famine the world's comfort zone? And how is the world scared of peace and prosperity? We actually fear the good of life more than we fear the bad of life, or the unsavory of life. The world wants peace, but lacks desire to expand out of the grips of war because of ingrained history. And how does the history of all of our lives open up and show us how we still are in the control of the books and previous lives since the beginning of time? And how is fear and survival embedded in our DNA, our cells, our minds, and just in our spirit and everything? The spirit is supposed to be pure, and it is pure, but how are we blemished with past lives and the memory of unsavory things? Because we are a visible spirit. It's called the wraith of wisdom, and wraith is a visible spirit. So how do we lack the desires to release the pillage and plunder and famine of war and thinking we have to conquer people rather than communicate and listen to other people to expand our lives? And that's something I'm expanding into as I do these webinars. You'll listen your way to wealth. You'll talk your way to the outhouse. And how do we fantasize war? We're big heroes in war and we're big heroes. But really, for every hero, there is somebody that lost their life. We fantasize about war and everybody talks about how the war, the outcomes, but we never talk about the underneath and the true outcome of war, and that's the people that are directly involved in war. And that is where our fears and our being scared of life really stems, is from previous lives and the encryptions inside ourselves. We've got an encrypted DNA, and that's where the expansion of fear, letting go of fear, begins. And how are you having to conquer people is fear? How are you afraid and fear that person for who they are, and appreciating and accepting, appreciating and participating in their wisdom by listening and communicating with them? How is communication and listening the way out of fear? Because if you listen to the fear and communicate, the wisdom inside that fear will come forward. And my new coaching is called Expressed Expansionism, Infinite Spiritual Magical Splendor, to never ever be a defender of beliefs, viewpoints, opinions, and everything we think is absolutes, because absolutes pollute. How are your absolutes and your views, your opinions and beliefs actually your fears, because you're afraid to go beyond the limits of them? And how do we get scared in the thinking mind when we hear something that's out of the norm and it's into the innovation and the intuition? How do we become afraid? And how is that where the fear is? Because the memory of the woulda, shoulda, coulda before appears? And how is your woulda, shoulda, couldas, your deeply embedded fears? And this isn't about letting go of fear. This is about understanding fear is the first energy appearing in a situation. So it's really a first way to expand astute revelations within yourself. And how is today stuck in the ancestral ways of life? How are we still in the technology age, but we do a lot of things in the survival mode of our ancestors, our parents? And how do we live the fear of our parents? And how are we sent here and we took this contract to feature the fears of our parents? And how are we here to feature history and write a new autobiography of affluence, influence, and fun? How would that feel to write your own book of influence, affluence, and fun? That's what we're really here for. But we're so caught up in what is happening in the world, and we try to take responsibility for everything around and to be accountable and talk about all the situations that are going on around. How do they embed more fear and cause more angst within you? How is facilitating what is right in front of you and really focusing in and facilitating your dreams and your sired desires and your inspired desires, how will focusing on them relieve the fears? Because your fears are outside influences invoking the images inside you, the words in the subconscious, the images in the subconscious. How do you play letting go of that? Because see, really fear is self-imposed by previous experiences, and most of the time it's from woulda, shoulda, coulda. What I should have done, could have done, and might have done. And all of it never happened. If you look around today, other than technology, what is different than it's ever been in any time in history? As I open my eyes to see and open up the admittance of my heart and soul, I see we live in the most technological times of ever, but yet I see the modes of survival that my ancestors have. And that is something that we really, really are opening up to. And now I want to say this with me. You repeat, you put your name where it says, Eternal Spirit. I am Robert A. Wilson. I've personally cleaned, personally cleansed, personally cleared, personally prospered, personally polished all phases of my life now to eternity. How do you feel that? Where do you feel? Does that put a liberating oomph in here and allow you to move forward? Eternal Spirit, I am Robert A. Wilson. You put your name there where it says Eternal Spirit, your name. Eternal Spirit, I am Robert A. Wilson. I personally cleaned, personally cleansed, personally cleared, personally prospered, personally polished all phases of my life now to eternity. How freeing is that? And how people today have the embedded survival modus operandi that the earliest people encompassed. How do we still do the survival mode? We go into it, we step back, and we try to surround ourselves with the woulda, shoulda, couldas, and how could I, rather than where is the wisdom to expand me? And where is the wisdom inside this fear? Because fear is my friend, expanding astute revelations, allowing me to move forward. How are we afraid to address the fear? Because fear is usually ingrained in pain and suffering and frustration. And whatever was ingrained with pain, frustration, and angst will come out in pain and frustration, but will also be a relieving release, allowing you to live in the luminosity, because every fear is wisdom covered up. And it is a foresight to ignite the knighted prowess within yourself and become the titan of your life. How does that feel? When you address the fear, it's address, confess, and bless it, because it served a purpose. But now it's time for it to leave and allow you to move forward. Feared and scared are the way people are controlled and enslaved by the powers to be. How do they use history and all the suffering? And they use recessions going up and down. Recessions are a manipulation of wealth stealing. The economy is set up to keep us in fear. Fear never hides, fear never leaves until the life learning lesson is extracted and initiated in your daily life. Fear is addressed, blessed, and confessed, but it's also expanding energies to enlighten you, enlighten me on how to move forward, because inside fear, you'll see that you encompass the courage and the abilities to expand out of fear. It's really, fear is a self-ingrained, a sellout and doubt within us, but you also have encompass the canonized clout to expand. Fear lives up in the high parts. Fear actually lives up here. Scared is in the body, but the gut still has more strep than all of it. So ask yourself, where is the wisdom? I showed me I had the courage, because no matter how much fear you have, you've stood up and you've lived through it. So you already have the courage. Now it's the blessing and ingraining in the courage. But where do you feel the fear? And what was all the surrounding circumstances of the fear? Because now it's time to get out of the circumstance into the circumdance. Dance with the fear, freeing, epiphanies, appreciating everybody's resolve that was in there. But it's unstrapped crap to wrap. Realize, appreciate, and thank those who participated. Because appreciate yourself, because you had the guts to stand through it. And it may not have been the outcome of your expectations, but it was the outcome to expand you. That is something else we're going to get into more as this goes on. But here's the thing about a dream. Dream are free of opinions. Fear is the encompassing of you being encompassed and in the hot and bothered in the blather of your views, opinions, other people's opinions, surroundings, childhood, school system, all the outside sources are farces. The force is right in here. This, you listen to this and you allow this to fill with the emotional, enterprising energies, you will allow yourself to expand. You'll author-wise yourself as author-wise, because you are wise. But we've been always taught to step back instead of step forward. And how does history keep fears embedded in you and me? Because we read about war, pillage, plunder, and famine over and over and over. And how does history repeat over and over and over again? War, pillage, plunder, and famine. And how does that war, pillage, plunder, and famine ingrain the poverty consciousness in all people today and in the forefront of our minds? Because I want to express to you, minds are meaningless, invoked, natural, or nagging despair. It's a memory invoking nagging despair, because all fear is a memory of the now. All angst, frustration, ingrained stuff is a memory of the now. So when you avow your wow, you walk on water to walk on wisdom to expand out of it. But it's listening to yourself. Now say this with me, where it says your name right there in parentheses, use your name. Eternal Spirit, I am Robert A. Wilson. Spiritually clean, spiritually cleansed, spiritually cleared, spiritually shined, spiritually prospered in all phases of my life, now to eternity, to beam my beautiful light, delighting all the universe, because we're prepared and we're unhooking and releasing the fears, because fear isn't false evidence. Its fear is ingrained in self-doubt. And we sell ourselves, fear is selling ourselves out in self-doubt. And how do you sell yourself out in doubt? So now we're going to unleash the canonized clout to walk of wisdom. And because wisdom is unattached and it has a candid curiosity to walk through the fear and investigate for the innate innovation that's inside it. How does that feel? Where's the innate innovation for me to expand my life? That's fear. as foresight, energizing, audacious, revolutionary wit to walk internally talented. And how do people communicate and listen to the level of their fear and the level of thinking? How is thinking your fear level? And how is the thought your scared part? And how is the memory invoking all of that? And how, by just understanding that, how does that free you up to move forward and expand through life rather than be caught up in the life, be of your life to liberate internal foresight, epitomizing your inner geysers of genius? How does that is? But when you got to investigate the fear, you can't just let it happen in pen and paper, venting, but you address it, confess it, and bless it because it served a purpose. It did something for you, but now how does that fear keep replaying in all phases of your life? That is where letting go of the fear is. How does your thinking and overthinking create your fears, provoking you to be scared of life situations? There's them woulda, shoulda, couldas again. Because every event, everybody wants to be the hero. This is something I went through. You want to stand up there and you have it all played out in your mind, and then when it happens, none of it happened. And then that become a fear that lowered your self-esteem. But how was it that it was never as bad or as unsavory as you thought is actually savory? Because you walked away from it, and everything else is an egotistical thinking, and you're caught up in that. How does that invoke everything inside you? Your fear, you're scared, all that dark farces. Because everything is a dark farce in the fear. But it's also very real in the memory mind because you're replaying it over and over and over. So when you can roll it over into the clover, and clover's money. That's another word for money. So how are you the moneyed up magician to let it all go? Abracadabra, it's all gone. How are you the magician? Fear is not false evidence appearing real. Fear is an encoded memory created by an experience of some sort. Fear comes from expectations, how you think or I thought they will react and then do the opposite. Fear is a feeling of a personal intimidation. It's an inner intimidation that nobody sees. And how do you feel intimidated at times and you let your fears just overwhelm you? In what events of your life do you still feel intimidated? Because that intimidation is going to show up every day until you address it, confess it, and bless it. But you got to really appreciate yourself because it's not accepted. Acceptance and boundaries are lowering yourself down to it. Forgiveness is lowering yourself down to it. Forgive me, I'm free. Then step up and appreciate the other person for participating in your life expanding adventures. And how do you overplay and overthink what really happened when really it was just if you can break it down to 10 words, it's like going down the road and having a flat tire, almost hitting a Jersey barrier in a truck. But really, in reality, I had a flat tire, I changed the flat tire, and then I'm on my way. 10 words. If you can break a fear down into very few words and get it into the positive and the flow, you'll flow in the glow of your gold, and you'll get out of town fast because you let go of the crap and you're in the classiness of yourself. How does the same situation showing up? How is a fear is a memorized intimidation you allow yourself to escape into, so you set a boundary, forgive them, but yet that image and that ick is still in here. So kick the ick out by showing the capiche of who you are, by querying yourself, and the next time, stand up and do a little better, but listen to your inner self. Instead of trying to engage in conversation, question them. Use their words and question them, and even do that. How do you feel realizing that fear is an is a memory intimidating you in the now. It's not an event of the past, it's a memory of the now. How will that allow you to address it and bless it? But really appreciate and expand out. Don't accept it. Stay out of acceptance. Stay out of forgiveness in the situation. Expand into I forgive me and appreciate the person and yourself, and then thank them for participating in your expansion. Appreciation gives the value to yourself. That's a vim and vigor value, allowing you to expand in here. And how do you communicate with others on your level of fear? Fear never runs. Fear hides and chides, causing people to hide behind a mask of procrastination and intimidation. And how do you do that? And the biggest fear people hide behind is arrogance. How is arrogance an egotistical haunt? If you think you're better than somebody, that's because you're weaker in here and living out of here, but you're not down here. The gut and the spirit and the strut all understand we're all equal and we're all on the same playing field. So how do you hide behind arrogance, but yet hide behind the mask of procrastination, of intimidation? Because fear is procrastination because you're afraid to step out and express who you are. But it's really who I am, because I'm an amazing person. And that is what you say. I am amazing. And I got a blazing trailblazer talent to be released now. And I embellish my Hellraiser because I am open, willing to walk in wisdom. And wisdom is a willingness, invigorating, sassy dreams, opening magnificence. And how does it feel to go in there? And here's one other one. How are people afraid of what they know? Fear of what other people know, causing their internal angst, distrusting their abilities. How did you embed fear and frustration by not wanting to hurt other people? And you ended up covering up your own hurt feelings, and that turned into a fear, being scared. And you really thought by not hurting somebody, you was doing good, but really you lived under a hood of shoulda, coulda, woulda. How does that do? How is that? And them have to be addressed. It isn't a thing, but a pen and paper, just sit down and start writing everything that comes out. Hypnotherapy, everything will help you, but never sit around and don't try to heal it, because when people are trying to heal it, they're looking for everything that's wrong. You want to be expressed expansionism inside me. I'm free, and it allows you to move forward and get out of it. And how are them hurt feelings a practice of yours because you think you're tougher than the other person? But really, you're not tougher. You're more fearful, but think you're tougher. And how have all people been taught to just trust others because you think other people are better than you? And my family was bad about that, my parents. And we've expanded out of it, but it's really something you can see today. But if you think you're better than somebody or somebody's better than you, the fool's in the mirror. But the forthright founding expandedism, that's a new word, expandedism is inside me. Sets me free. But you got to expand and energize that geyser of guts to strut out of there. And it's your gut that'll take you forward. This will keep you in the stink of the think, and then in the fear of the smear, and the fear of the afraid and the scared. So go here. Go in here. Here's where everything is. This is where the solidity of your life is. This is where the follower of the turdocracy is. Are you still standing today from all the fear you've went through and everything? And are you still standing today? Now do you feel your stellar courage to understand fear is thinking woulda, shoulda, coulda? And then how is the woulda, shoulda, coulda is always playing out in your life instantly? How do they invoke everything in your life? Fear is my friend, a standing astute revelation. How by admitting fear, how do people fear admitting they have fear? How are you afraid to admit it that you have it? You admit it, you get it, and you get rid of it. Fear is a memory of woulda, shoulda, coulda, because the replays of the event are myths, expressed expansionisms from the experience. That is where the woulda, shoulda, couldas is, because you miss the spiritual and the savvy and the trailblazing temerity to move forward. It's a tenacity within there that allows you to open up your innovative prowess. And the walk of wisdom, eternal spirit, I am Robert Allen Wilson, clearly clean, purely cleansed, prosperously cleared, pristinely polished, all phases of my life, now to eternity. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. That's Ho'oponopono. Welcome to the Walk of Wisdom webinar, introducing you to expressed expansion is inside me. I'm free. Release fear, expanded inspirational desire. How are you feeling after hearing these poetic proses? Do they unfreeze the ease and unseize you and allow you to move forward? And actually understand fear is just selling yourself out in doubt? Dreamer's Freedom Dream Sculpting by Cowboy Wisdom. I am now karmically cleaned, karmically cleansed, karmically cleared, karmically polished every phase of my life, now to eternity. How do you try to heal expectations and expecting life to change yet it stays the same? How do you feel after reading this poetic prose? Change is on the horizontal, like I said in the last webinar. But expand out of it and understand that fear is selling yourself out in doubt, unleashes that canonized clout to walk into the walk of wisdom, to willingly innovate, seeing daily opulent magnificence within you, and it'll appear outside of you. And here is the last one. Eternal Spirit, I am Robert Allen Wilson. I am divinely clean, divinely cleansed, divinely cleared, divinely prospered, divinely polished, all phases of my life, now to eternity. Where do you feel this energized prose in you? And how do you feel liberated? These are all individuals. You got to investigate yourself and do this. And now, Walk of Wisdom webinars opens your heart and soul, feeling your savvy, omnipotent, utopian lure within your core to core, to soar, of savvy, omniscience, appreciating real life experiences. And Walk of Wisdom is presented by Robert A. Wilson, and Cowboy Wisdom shows you the way to expand through life, unleash your expressed expansionism of your internal spiritual magical splendor, releasing your fears, to experience your sired desires, inspirations, dreams your way. And the Walk of Wisdom webinars are trademarked by Robert A. Wilson, Cowboy Wisdom, Walk of Wisdom webinars. Life expands when you understand your grand.